Welcome to Business Connection. I'm Liz Spencer. We have a wonderful guest in studio today. It's Dr. Thomas McElroy. He's a licensed clinical psychologist from DuPage Psychological Associates. Wow. Well, welcome. Thank you for coming. Now, you've been in practice for 35 years. Tell me a little bit about who you see and what do you help them with?
Now I'm seeing adults individually and in a couples context. Occasionally I'll see parents with young adult and adult children. The major thing that brings people in is generally feelings of depression, anxiety and panic, stress management, and relational difficulties.
Wow, that's a lot.
It can be.
Can be. What do you think is causing people's stress these days?
In a fundamental sense, change. Change is stressful, even when it's seen as positive change. So, changes in health circumstances, changes in relationship, changes in one's feeling of managing themselves effectively.
It all comes down to change.
It all comes down usually to change and adaptation to it.
All right. Well, you know, it's funny because we all say we want change, but maybe we want it and we don't know what comes with it.
We want it smoothly and painlessly.
Yeah, I can see that. It doesn't always happen that way, but sometimes the journey is good. You also mentioned depression, and I feel like there's a lot of people with depression today.
That is a very common thing that I see people for. I see it often as associated with loss. Loss obviously can mean things like loss of a loved one or losses of homes and jobs, but it also can be loss of confidence in oneself, loss of health, loss of vitality. And so there's a number of various kinds of losses. People respond to that by feeling sad, demoralized, and depressed.
Right. Well, that's very interesting because I think we often think of loss in much more of a person or a physical sense rather than a feeling or a...
It's more feeling and an emotional experience. Yeah.
Tom, how do we know when we need to seek outside help like you?
Probably the first thing is if somebody else tells you. That's a common
it's
thing,
funny because we often hear that, but I don't know if we take it seriously. But if you think people are mentioning it,
if people are mentioning it, you probably need to consider it.
Wow. Okay.
Because usually it's people that care about you. But the other major thing is when one feels themselves in some sense out of control, overwhelmed, not managing things at their usual level of ability.
Well, that's interesting. And I guess that leads to my next question, which is that I think we often think, well, gee, I don't know if I need help. How do I know when I need that? And then what happens when I do sit down with you? I think we all might have a TV view of it, and we make up things on TV, Tom, and it's not even close to it. So.
Sure. Usually, in the first session. Usually people will just talk and they will unburden themselves and they will they will experience actually some relief from talking and feeling listened to. Obviously there's much more to it. From there, what we're going to want to do is find out what are some of the issues that are fueling the negative feelings or the negative experiences, come to understand those and develop perhaps different and more effective coping skills and mechanisms tie into people's natural resiliency, so that and their strengths to, in a sense, empower them to cope more effectively with their issues.
You make it sound like it's a nice step process there. That
it's often a step process, but it's not a scripted step process where everybody does number one and number two. Everyone is unique and individual, and it's going to vary substantially from person to person and situation to situation.
Well, I think a quick follow-up to that is, how long would one expect to be in therapy, or in that you're probably going to tell me that one's hard to give it.
It's very hard. It is largely dependent on people's goals, not necessarily, in quotes, the severity of their difficulties. If someone comes in and tells me, I feel very anxious, I want it to go away yesterday, that's a very different question than I feel anxious and I want to understand why. So that I want to understand why typically means they're going to be coming for a longer period of time.
Right. Now you work with a a lot of couples, and what do you do with the couple work?
The couples, the typical things that will bring a couple in are trust violations, loss of intimacy, feelings of becoming distant, frequent disagreements, hurt feelings. What we generally try to do is look at the communication process. Very, very often people are really positively motivated toward their partners and toward their relationships, but those motivations and the communications are misunderstood and experienced as negative. So, we will address some of that. With trust violations, that's a different category altogether. The first parts of that are typically the person who has violated their partner's trust needs to really understand, in a true emotional sense, the impact and pain that is caused. And the person whose trust has been violated, very often their life is at that point turned upside down. They feel crazed, and they need to kind of come to terms with the idea that that's not an abnormal or unusual reaction to the situation.
Now, tell me,
it's a long answer.
It's a long answer, but it's a good one, and I think many people need to hear it, because I often think, again, we just don't know when we need to seek help. And one of the, oftentimes you get referrals from physicians, and why is that important? I would imagine you work a little bit hand in hand.
I do. I work often with physicians. My training and experience is perhaps a little bit unusual for most psychologists. In my early career, I worked at Northwestern Hospital doing assessments, mostly with medical patients and neurology patients. I did my doctoral level internship at Hines VA Hospital, and then I was hired to work in the consultation liaison service there, which is in the medical section. So I have a great deal of experience with medical patients.
Well, I would think that many physicians are going to refer, we're going to talk to them first, maybe, saying, I'm feeling depressed, I'm not feeling myself.
Yeah, well, actually it's estimated that over 50% of visits to primary care physicians are for depression and anxiety, even though people might come in with a medical complaint.
Tom, what do you want people to understand about your practice?
Maybe the major thing is that I'm experienced. I have seen a great deal of different human difficulties over the years, and so there's commonalities. We're all human, but despite that, each individual also is unique. I think that having experience with the commonalities helps me to more rapidly, perhaps, pick up on things. I hope that people feel respected and treated as unique individuals. The best feedback I've ever gotten was from a physician who told me, I refer a lot of people to you. Not every single one has gotten all the help they wish for, but they all felt respected.
That's wonderful, and I can see why. Sitting across from you, I absolutely get that idea. So, Tom, thanks for stopping by and telling us a little bit about what you do and why you do it. It was a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you.
We'll be right back with more Business Connections. Stay tuned.